So we're joined here today with Peter Horvath, CEO of Green Growth Brands. Thank you for coming all the way to studio today. I appreciate your time.
Glad to be here. Excited.
Absolutely. Now, for all of our investors, you guys have a very detailed investor deck you can find at greengrowthbrands.com. So we're going to skip the whole part of going over an overview, because I think that does itself a very nice overview. Instead, jump into certain developments that have recently and really go over who do you see Green Growth Brands being, and how are you going to be a competitor in what's turning up to be now a pretty fierce American market?
Well, I think it's worth saying, we're not seeing ourselves as a cannabis company. We're seeing ourselves as retailers. We think the opportunity is, it's not about cannabis brands, it's not about cannabis consumers, it's about brands and consumers. Yeah. And that's where our expertise is. We're leaning into what we know, and that does differentiate us from everybody else. But yeah, we're excited to get going here,
Yeah, and speaking on that retail experience, obviously, as you started learning about your company yourself a little bit more, you had Bed & Body Works, you've got American Eagle, you've got Victoria's Secret. So you and your team have a lot of retail experience. How do you think that translates into the cannabis space, and how does that give you an advantage having that background?
Huge advantage, because we've competed for consumers in mature and crowded markets. And I think that when I look at the people we're competing with, it's foreign to them. I think they're experts at raising capital, which they do exceptionally well, getting licenses, financial transactions. They're great at that. And I think some folks are getting real strength at creating product and getting product. But product is only part of the recipe. If you think of it as an ingredient to the recipe, you have to be a great cook. It's not just, you have to have all the ingredients, and then you have to actually make them come alive. And that's where, if I was just a retailer, somebody who was in retail, as opposed to somebody who's been at the most successful retail companies out there, then I'd be someone who can cook. But actually, I'd say we're chefs. Yeah. We actually know how to make amazing food. I'm taking that metaphor way too far.
Yeah. But no, it's important though, because as people are starting to look into what is now becoming a mature cannabis space, stock-wise, not the industry-wise, it's just starting.
Right.
But as you got all these different Canadian companies, American companies, it's amazing how many people are still out there trying, like newer entrants, trying to say that you're going to be the biggest producer, or you're going to be the biggest extractor. You're going to. I'm not looking for that person as an investor anymore. What I'm looking for is, how does a company differentiate itself from others? And the biggest thing, how are you going to sell a brand and sell product?
Yep.
Because if you have 5 stores compared to, I can imagine American Eagle and all of them, they've got hundreds and hundreds of stores across.
1,000 stores across the planet.
1,000.
Multinational, yeah.
So when you're looking at that, that's when you're starting to, I'm looking at a company like this where it's like, oh, you've done this for these other companies. Now when you come to the cannabis space, it's not going to be 1 store, it's not going to be 5 stores. Or I can imagine you're looking to open a few more than that.
We think we're imagining, and if we look, it's going to be a lot of stores very quickly, like everybody else. There's a lot of folks opening stores quickly, but what we're interested in is 100 amazing stores. It's like, I'd rather try to deliver a great customer experience in 100 $20 million stores than 1,000 $2 million stores. You can imagine how difficult it is to manage teams of people across 1,000 stores. And we've actually done that at a high level of quality, but boy, it's a big headache.
Yeah, and I'm actually a little concerned, I'll be honest, about a lot of different companies out there, because as you're growing, it's now not, can you grow cannabis, or do you have a good product, which is obviously very important.
It is.
But from a company standpoint, how are you going to start managing where a lot of these people were minors, if you look at some of the Canadian companies, or they've grown 10 plants or 50, now they're trying to do it larger. How are you going to scale? It's really important. But going on in your store, actually, because coming straight from your investor presentation, you guys are talking about always in-stock assortment and superior in-store experience. Can you explain a little bit more on that and how you're going to have your stores be those 100 amazing stores?
So here's the trick. This is what all the non-retailers in the industry, which is most of the industry, should listen to and figure out how to do this. I'm now giving the secret out. Yeah. So there's something called an assortment architecture. So what is the assortment that you put in your store? That's what things do you have in your store. There's actually a commercial logic to that assortment. We call it an architecture. Why do you do that? Well, number one, an assortment that has a clear architecture is easy for consumers to navigate. So if you were to, you don't do cosmetics, but if you were to walk into a MAC cosmetics store, the packaging looks like it was designed by the same person who designed the store. Everything goes together. An Apple store, everybody's been in an Apple store. It's a big rectangle that's really clean looking, just like all the products. That's simple, right? So making an assortment easy to navigate is super important for the customer. It's super important for training your people. If you have an assortment that has some change, always has to have constant newness.
Yeah.
But if all of it is always changing and there's all these choices, impossible for a consumer to follow, impossible for your team to be able to support. Then you start extending that to how easy is it to be in stock when you have 100 things to keep in stock versus 20.
Yeah.
Very difficult. And then you think about how easy is it to develop sourcing relationships, whether you're the grower or somebody else is, to support 100 different things versus 20 different things. So I think what you see is there's a thoughtfulness to how you architect your assortment that makes it a good experience for the consumer, makes it easy to support that consumer with high engagement with your associates because they can be trained. It's not overly complicated, makes it easy to be in stock, and makes it easy to develop your supply chain relationships.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that thinking in any of the experiences out there right now. To me, it looks like they're launching stores based on what they think stores should do. It's like, well, you should have an assortment. I have some guy design fixtures and lay it out. We'll hire some people. I'll get some people from J. Crew or somewhere to run the store. It's not that simple. Everything has to be tied together. And that's something we know, and I can tell everybody how to do it, and they couldn't do it because you have to have done this for decades in order to be able to do it in a predictable and sustainable way.
Yeah, and that's actually why, like for myself, I see you guys having a competitive advantage and why I'm a shareholder of GGB, because I'm looking even at the Canadian landscape where all of our stores are coming out and everyone's out of stock. And if you're coming out and you're coming from an illegal, illicit market and you're going into these legal states or legal provinces, whatever it be, it's so important to have a product in stock, because if all of a sudden you loved a product and the next time you don't go there and the next time it's changed, you're like, well, no, I'm going to go back to my dealer. I'm going to go back, and that's going to be a real thing to focus on for the next couple of years.
That's right.
So I was looking at this, and I was looking at your, what you guys are looking to achieve, and that actually brought me a little bit towards you guys, because it was that strategic advantage, it was that difference, it was that experiences, like you said, I haven't quite really seen in a lot of these other brands, and I'm concerned about them because it's such an important thing for consumers coming into a new market. But speaking of markets, Nevada, recently you've had a couple developments there.
Yes.
One of which you had, I believe, 7 licenses there, along with 2 other companies, and several companies actually people thought were going to get licenses did not. How are you able to achieve 7 compared to the others who were not able to achieve any?
Well, I wish I absolutely knew, but what I'm told and what I believe is the scoring criteria leans heavily on resumes. So they want to know. I mean, if you think about states, what are they supposed to do? What's their fiduciary responsibility? Well, it's to collect the most taxes possible in a very compliant way, right? So what they're looking for is expertise. Who can execute? So the resumes play a big role in who can execute. They want to know that you can operate a business that's financially stable, get it open quickly, and then start generating taxes for them quickly. So you need to have a balance sheet that's significant. You know, that's a big factor. And then the last one is another way to prove that is how much tax have you paid in this state? Because obviously this is all about them raising taxes. So they're looking for you know, do they believe you can open the store? Do they believe you can operate it? And do they believe that you can have a very successful business so you generate a lot of taxes? And with our ownership group, I believe in the application we showed $155 million of taxes paid in Nevada over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think one other group, Essence, had a very high number similar to that. And it's no surprise that they got 8 licenses and we got 7.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's going back to tying into the expertise you guys have had in the retail space over the last numerous years.
Right.
Now, when it comes to, again, sticking with Nevada just for a moment, you just recently also announced that you acquired your second grow facility there.
Yes.
that was for about $17 million, and you had allocated, I believe, $68 million for acquisitions in Nevada. That's leaving around $51 million still left to go. Do you already have things eyed out, or are you still feeling things out for the next grow up?
We have to continue to expand the grow facilities. We'll probably move our processing facility. That won't take much money. Each store, you have to just, we haven't spec'd out the store designs and build outs and locations, but each store is going to take $1 million, $1.5 million of cash to get up and running. But look, these stores ought to be generating, depending on the revenue, $2 to $7 million of cash every year. So it's going to be a very fast payback. So I think in Nevada, I think we can get $150 to $200 million business and self-fund it now with this engine. We weren't expecting 7 licenses. We were hoping, but we were expecting 3. And in our investor presentation, I think we might have only 2 in the pro forma. So this is a good thing. I think what it means is we can self-fund Nevada. Now what that means is we can enter other states with some of these funds, and also it's a good idea to keep money on the balance sheet. And that's what we plan to do. We're going to keep looking at, we're going to grow in other states as well.
Absolutely. And what is your current grow capacity now? And a double-edged question, actually, or a double two-part question. What's your current grow capacity now? And are you looking also to get supply deals as well, just to make sure it flows into the stores?
Well, I'm not going to have all the numbers, but the current facility, which is about 30,000 feet, but I used to know this number, I don't remember it anymore. It might be 12,000 feet of canopy. It does like 350 pounds, which is probably 150 pounds more than people would expect per month. So it's actually very productive. We're hoping that we can transport that to the bigger footprint in the other facility. We should be able to. Only about 30% of it goes to the 2 source stores in Nevada, one which we own, the other which we will own soon. And the other 70% is wholesaled, and it's a good business. I think we're going to look at, with this big footprint in Nevada, we're going to look at should we be 50% internally sourced. Obviously, the margin would be extraordinary on that 50%. But maybe why not 100? Well, I'd say why not 100 is I want some diversification of supply chain. Plus, people, you've heard of brand cannabiotics. People love specialty brands, and we're not always going to be able to be the guys that have that brand. It's okay to bring other brands in, because we're in the business of making consumers happy. Because that will lead to other good things.
Yeah, absolutely. And why don't we switch over to brands then? Because there's a couple of things. You guys have launched several brands. I believe Camp was one of them. There's a few others as well. What do you look to achieve with these brands? Are you going after specific demographics for each brand? I believe you have an all-women's brand as well.
Yeah, it's really a state of mind. If you think about it, we're all consumers, we're all experts at being consumers. And if you're bored and you feel like shopping, you're just walking down the street and you walk into this store or that store, you're really aspiring to the state of mind that they present. And I think Camp is going to be dual gender. It's outdoor oriented, which is pretty easy to translate in most locations. And it's about escape. It's kind of a metaphor for what the plant can do for you, which is let your cell phone die, make your thoughts about the past and the future disappear, and just find yourself kind of focusing on the glowing faces around the campfire, the sparks that draw your eyes up to the stars, and kind of the recognition that, damn, those stars are there every night, and I never bother to look up. And I think, I'm not an expert cannabis user, but I think when I've used it and what I hear is that that's very much what it can do for you. It can make you be present, rediscover the here and now, which too many of us don't see it. And you need a way to discover it, and this is a great way. So Camp, that's the Camp brand. Green Lily is focused on females. We think it's a big missing piece of the market. Okay, I probably shouldn't even say this. Someone sent me a billboard for Invictus. It says put the ass back in grass, and it had a woman with her butt hanging out. And you know what? There's a market for that, but that is so counter trend. When you consider that 58% of the consumers in California are female, you probably need to start paying attention to what's going on in the world. The last 10 years, women have been empowered. There's a shift in how they're treated. There's a level of respect that's expected and deserved. And we're going to give that to them in a retail experience that isn't being provided to them today.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of, if you will, it's Lululemon with weed.
Yeah.
It's basically a community. It's a place where they can talk about microdosing, you know, spa-like experiences where you get to recover, you know, from your busy day. And we're very excited about that brand. The reaction we're getting in this brand is huge. So initially, we might take a $30 million store in Nevada and make it a camp store and have a Green Lily store in there, and just so that we keep the dual gender traffic flow.
Yeah.
Just to learn. Ultimately, like many brands, we may discover that a women's only brand can do more business than a dual gender brand, which intuitively you'd say the numbers say that can't happen. But if you just look at retail, it happens every day.
Yeah, and actually that leads me into one of the ones I knew I had to ask you, because specifically when it comes to the Hemp Bill, we've just recently passed it through now the House, and it's looking like this will be a reality, and there's so many different things that it's going to open up. Sticking away from your CBD water for just a moment, Mary Jane, when it comes to American Eagle or Bed & Body Works, is there going to be synergies there when you're talking about hemp clothing or possibly CBD bombs? Is that what you're looking at right now, or are you leaving that a little bit more for the future?
I think that's on the edges, I would say. Like, look, because we have relationships with them, there's interest. We're developing some product for American Eagle. It'll probably be personal care oriented as opposed to clothing, et cetera. But I think it's very much on their radar because they're in tune with where consumers are going and what they're interested in. And obviously most consumers are interested in sustainability, other elements. Yesterday we were in a marketing meeting looking at the bags for our 7 Cents brand, which is a CBD brand that we'll be putting out in malls. We'll have hundreds of kiosks a year from now. And the discussion was like, well, do we want to be a business that believes in sustainability? You know, the beauty is we're just forming our company, so we get to make these decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, it is important to our consumers. So the discussion was like, should the bag be made out of hemp? Then the discussion went to, how long do you think hemp takes to decompose versus recycled paper? And so you might be misguided thinking that hemp is the sustainable solution, when in fact, using recycled paper is the first good move. And the second good move is to encourage reuse of that bag. So you know, it's an interesting, you know, it's as you can see, it's a lot of fun, a lot of decisions that need to be made.
Yeah, and as this is going, I can only imagine when it comes to CBD products and how quickly you can now, once this goes through, you can go across all 52 states with it. Is that a large focus of who Green Growth Brands is going to be with the Mary Jane water and different elements that can come from that, because you can expand nationally so quickly?
Yeah, right now what we're doing is we're developing relationships with wholesalers that can get us to thousands of stores. So that'll be probably good margin, but probably the lowest margin we'll have. We're going to have hundreds of category killer CBD kiosks in malls across the United States. That'll be much better margin. And I believe dollar for dollar, each of those channels will drive a dollar to our web store, because most personal care product, and that's where we're focusing, is you know, it gets used up in 2 to 4 weeks, and so reorder will be on the web store, which will have the highest margin. And think about it, in the world of CBD, very few people are really going to town on topical product, on personal care product. If you go to Charlotte's Web, great business, really appreciate what they do. It's mostly tinctures and edibles, which by the way are outlawed in California. Just New York State just came out and said they're not supporting it.
Oh, wow,
so in a world where tinctures and edibles, which is 70%, 80% of the current CBD market, is going to be maybe illegal in many states, why wouldn't you focus on topicals? And Charlotte's Web has two SKUs of topicals. And it's a good thing, because that's not what they do. They do what they do. What we do is we're going for Aveda and Kiehl's level quality. We're using our Procter & Gamble, our Unilever backgrounds, and our Bath & Body Works backgrounds to develop multi-fragrance personal care product that gives you the benefits of CBD. And the response we're seeing on our initial selling is amazing. It's 3 times what we expected. Part of it is because we're pricing it at mass. We're not at $50 to $100 like everybody else who's out there.
They're expensive. I'm surprised when I went to Vegas and saw some of them.
Yeah, they're
very
expensive. And you know what? If they want to sell a few units really expensively, that's great. We're going to sell zillions of units at a much less price. We're going to do something good for consumers.
Yep.
And we're excited about it because we're actually one of the differentiators. I didn't realize this. I mean, look, if you look at Charlotte's Web and they only have 2 products, probably Lord Jones has a bunch, I would guess. We're the only one out there with multiple fragrances. And the deal is these fragrances, because we're using very pure isolate, it's tested, to make sure there's no solvents or pesticides in it, so it's pure. The result is it doesn't, typically when you look at this product, it's like, how's it smell? And it's like, oh, not bad. Yeah. Well, that's not a good answer. The answer's got to be amazing because what you do with CBD, with any personal care product, you use testers. And people try it, they rub it on the inside of their wrist, they smell it, they make the decision to buy. It's an emotional decision. Then they get on then they notice there's this thing called CBD on the label. They get on their phones and they discover what CBD is. Yeah. I think we're going to bring lots of, we're going to bring CBD to the customers in a way because of the quality and the efficacy of the product that probably no one else can do.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting market when it comes to topicals as well, especially seeing that with CBD, it actually already has omega-3s and fatty acids, which right now a lot of these topical creams and all that actually use fish oils for. Yep. So you can also, another sustainable thing there is bringing that in. So no, I appreciate all the different topics and things we're able to go into. If you're looking for more, greengrowthbrands.com, trading on the CSE as GGB. I appreciate it very much. I look forward to being able to have you on the show again in 2019. We can dive more into the company and see what you were able to do.
Check on results, huh?
Yeah, and see the progression that you've been making. So appreciate your time very much. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Perfect.